and the intelligence that knits a cut back together, that heals a wound in your hand. What if you can bring that intelligence forward into your everyday actions from your mind, from your thoughts?
You can't rush your healing. Your healing.
Hey guys, I thought I would talk about why God doesn't answer prayers of healing, requests for healing. Many people lose heart with God and spiritual practice in some retrospect. If you're practicing Buddhism, then you probably won't lose heart as much because you don't define that there's a creator watching over you who loves you. But I know from my experience in this world and in this life that there is a great spirit that runs through and connects us to all things. And it connects us and uses one another to answer prayers, be they synchronistically or however that might occur. But why is it that many people get sick and they might turn to God and say, please help me or help my child? And God seems to not listen to them. Why? Why does it happen? Well, first of all, sometimes in life, things are not able to be healed. You can't heal everything in life. Your body is a self-healing organism. If it cuts itself, if you cut yourself, your body will heal that cut as long as you do not hold it open. Your body will do what it needs to do to heal that cut. Every single time, that's what it will do. However, your body does ultimately die in time. And that means that it can't always heal everything, because the degeneration of your body is the reason why you die. So the whole point of that aspect of it, the fact that sometimes we get sick, the fact that sometimes innocent children and men and women get sick and they don't recover, the fact that we have illnesses that are yet to be defined as having a cure, this is, I don't pretend to be God, but this is just a part of the experience of life. And that sounds brutal if you've lost a child, etc. I've had children in my guardianship for many years who died, and it cripples you. It's horrendous to watch a child you love die. It's horrible. However, it's also, as I say, part of life, because I think about it. And if there were no aspects of pain and suffering and sickness, we wouldn't value health. And that's the story of life in general. That's the mode of life in general. And this is kind of what Hindus lean towards, that you have this Brahman, this collective consciousness. But let me describe it in this way. Imagine you're in an endless white corridor, and you're sitting in a white chair in a white corridor on a white track, and it constantly rolls down this track at the same speed, and you can't look around. Your vision is transfixed directly ahead of you, and you have one constant droning noise following you down this never-ending corridor. You're just traveling down this white line with a constant unbroken hum. Just Now, this can be likened to the experience of consciousness without having a beginning and an end. Because if you imagine that experience, that is kind of where you came from. You came from a position, that light, that place of stillness. You came from the light. You are the light. But you came from the light to have a physical experience. And when you came from that light, you entered into the material realm. Now, as something travels through that white corridor, imagine all of a sudden there's a break in the noise. It starts to change, and you start to hear a difference in the noise. then all of a sudden you have colour, and colour is introduced into you, and you say, oh my gosh, this is a wonderful experience. All of a sudden life is completely changing. I'm not just on this white track going down a constant white corridor. Now I can see this colour, that colour, and now there's this, and now there's this sound as well. And wait, I can turn my head and look behind me and see the colours that were behind me. And you begin to build up the experience of life. Because when you were in that flat line going down that flat corridor, there's no way you would know if you were feeling love, pain, hate, sadness, compassion, empathy, excitement, tiredness, healthy, sick, because you're just on a flat line. You wouldn't know to be grateful because you've got no point of reference as you travel through that corridor. And because of that, this shows you the building blocks, the foundations of life. As you come into this world, the change in colour in that white corridor is you in a constant state of perfect health, and then your health drops, and then this builds you gratitude for the restoration of your health. As you go along and you fall in love with somebody, you understand how important that love is and how precious it is, because there was a time in your life where you didn't have it. There was a point in the journey through the white corridor where there was no feeling of that love, and it becomes precious. And then in the back of your mind, you know that this love in some way ends because this physical experience ends, and thus it gives you more passion to focus on that love. And thus, so we must die to be renewed. So we must die for the experience of life to be renewed. Now that's the first part of why God sometimes does not heal us, because sometimes it's just not possible. There are laws of nature that govern this reality. Some will seem unjust to us, some seem just to us. We can only make the best of we can from it by observing reality as it is, not how we think it is, which you do by taking no thought as you look upon the world, which is much more difficult than people realise. When you can walk into a forest and never say that you're surrounded by trees, you've entered a thoughtless state. And this is a very difficult thing for people to grasp. But once you get there, then you start to understand the language of the present moment, which are your inner senses and not your outer senses. So that is part of the fabric of life. But then there's another side of it. There are times where we get sick, where we can be healed. And our loving parents, as all loving parents who take their children to the doctor or to the naturopath or to the homeopath or to the spiritual medium or the medical medium or to the spiritual healer or to the priest or whoever, they take their children because they love them, they want them to be healed. And Mother, Father, Creator, as our glorious parent, operating through this great spirit that interconnects all things and all of us here on this planet, wants the same healing for us when it's possible. Speaking of which, I just heard my son crying, but Fritzy's with him, so it's okay. So God always wants us to be healed where possible. And I've seen evidence of this in my life, but he's the rub of it, and here's why people don't necessarily always get healed. When we cut ourselves, I mentioned, if I cut my hand and the cut is open, it will heal. But if I hold the cut open, it will not heal. Something blocks it. Now, if you don't like the term God or Spirit or Mother, Father, Creator, the innate intelligence that knit you together in your mother's womb wants to re-knit you together when you cut your hand. It wants to do it. Now, you've already surrendered responsibility to your organs, your liver, your heart, your lungs, everything, your endocrine system. You've surrendered responsibility already to that intelligence without your knowing, actually. That's how we'll look at it for the sake of this. You've surrendered that because you don't do it. You don't consciously do it. And that's because you're not as intelligent as Mother, Father, Creator, who works through and does these things within your body. And the intelligence that knits a cut back together, that heals a wound in your hand. What if you can bring that intelligence forward into your everyday actions from your mind, from your thoughts? What if you can bring that forward and allow its intelligence to express the healing within you? Now, the problem we have here, to bring that intelligence forward, you need to work out what is holding open the cut of the thing that you're trying to heal from. Now, you might have some sort of infection in your body. You might, as many of you know, I am battling a blood parasite called Babesia and Lyme as well. I've been diagnosed with Lyme as well, which are all going to be treated, but I can use me as an example for that. I see people as I'm looking on the internet who have lost hope, and they say, I've tried everything, I've tried this, and the truth of the matter is I read a lot of it and they don't actually. I see straight away. For instance, I was looking at people with chronic Lyme and people with chronic fatigue syndrome, and many of them say, when I crash, I have no appetite, but I force myself to eat. And I said, well, that's because you haven't brought forth the intelligence that sews up a cut in your hand into your carnal mind, into the expression of your thoughts. And you can bring that intelligence forward and let it whisper and govern to you what needs to happen. And if that intelligence is telling you not to eat and your carnal mind is telling you to eat, you've already see the perfect conflict or example of that conflict between self and the natural intelligence, which is way cleverer than we are. It can sort out all our enzymes, sort out the blood oxygen levels, our body chemistry. It sorts out so much inside of us that we couldn't with our thinking mind. And thus we know that this system is what we need to tap into. We need to get into that system to heal ourselves. Now, if you can bring forward that intelligence that heals a cut, bring that intelligence out, then quite simply, you need to be able to hear it. And to do that, you need to work on your inner senses and not your outer. Now, you can only be guided by spirit from the present moment. It's the only place spirit can truly guide you is in the present moment, in dream states, or via other people. Now, when we ask God, please help heal me, and you're not getting healed, if you eliminate the fact that it's something that can't be healed and it's part of the experience you're going to have, because God does not just leap in and suspend the natural laws that were necessary to give you the experience of life. Otherwise, he'd have left you in that white corridor on the endless white track with the endless drone going on in your ear. That can't be how the experience works. Doesn't mean God doesn't love you. It just doesn't mean it can always be that way. But if your suffering has an end and there's a way to stop that, then God will find a way. And the problem we have is many people talk and talk and talk to God, please, please, please. And God's already looking, saying, I know what you need, but I can't get through to tell you, because you are not looking upon the world as it is, you're looking upon the world as you think it is. The chatter of your mind is stopping me from letting you know how to go with this and this and this. Now, last year, I'm a very intuitive person. Last year, when I started to get weak, I told Fritzy, something is wrong deep inside me, and it feels like when I had malaria. That should have been my first alarm bell. My intuition related it to when I had malaria. Then later I said, okay, I'm pretty confident I've got Lyme disease. And that was an intuitive, deep intuitive feeling. And I went to a doctor and they refused to test me. They said, let's do all these other tests first. But I got so sick that I didn't get a chance to do all the other tests. Now, if I'd gone with my intuition back then I would have been out of this mess a lot faster. But I ignored it and I carried on, and I'm always in union with God, and I kept pushing forward. But here's the thing, I wasn't asking God about my health. I was just thinking it'll sort itself out, and every time I would ask for help with the kids, help with this, it was coming. But help for me I was not asking for. And eventually when I started getting sick and fasting for a long time, That's when I started saying, hey, I need your help with this. And there was one day we had a massive synchronicity. I read online about something that had similar symptoms to me that I'd never heard of, called babesia. And then Fritzi's mother called Fritzi an hour later and said, maybe you should test John for babesia because the dog that we got from Tanzania has babesia. And I just read about it. And I said, this is it. This is what I've got. And I got the test, and sure enough, I had babesia. And now that's led to the fact that I have Lyme. Now, I used the natural method to heal that, so on and so forth. However, back then, I absolutely knew unequivocally when I was water fasting for 33 days earlier this year that I needed antibiotics. I told Fritzi, I made a list, I got ahead of myself in Tanzania, I messaged the doctors I know out there, asked them if they can get the drugs for me, they said yes, said okay, this is what we need to do. God had done this with me in a fast. I was empty. I was seeing the world as it was. When I got to Tanzania, I felt okay, and my mind said, yeah, you know what, antibiotics are not that good for your body, you don't feel so bad. And I went against it, and I'd already been very much told from the inner intelligence which heals my cuts, that's what you need. I knew it. I absolutely knew it back in February that that's what I needed to do. And I ignored it because my carnal mind decided that antibiotics are not so great for your body. Despite my spiritual practice, despite the fasting, I ignored the intelligence. I ignored it. And that intelligence can heal you and does want to heal you. And indeed, Great Spirit of the Father Creator will use every means possible to heal a person who surrenders their healing over to Creator. But if you don't surrender it over, then other people can heal you. Modern medicine can heal you. But when you're praying to God and God does not answer, it's probably, if you can be healed, because you're not hearing God. Not that God is ignoring you. It's that you are not hearing it. And thus, to hear it, you need to get so quiet that you can hear the same intelligence that's beating your heart and making my hair grow as I talk to you now, or making your children's bodies grow and made your body grow. You need to hear that intelligence, and you need that intelligence to express through your thoughts. And you can do that in the silence of meditation. You can do that in the humility of prayer. And it works. And then you begin to see this wonderful, magical world of synchronicity, this wonderful play of consciousness going on where you know the connectivity, you know Great Spirit is there. I have managed to get in to see the best, pretty much, doctor for Lyme disease I could find in this country. He's in Hamburg, thankfully. And he is starting me on a very costly treatment, but it's insulin therapy. So you use insulin, antibiotics and sugar at the same time, and then the antibiotics go straight into the infected cells because the cells crave the sugar. The day before I went to see him, I knew it was costly and I didn't tell anybody that I was going. Somebody privately sent me enough money and said, this is for you. Someone who I met last year, family who came to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. They privately sent me the money the day before and said, this is for you. We saw that you're not well. We hope it helps. That same person, when they sent me that money, was on day 6 of a water fast, which shows me the synchronicity. It was Great Spirit, Mother, Father, Creator, went through that person and said, okay, John's going there tomorrow. He won't be able to afford it. Please, can you share what you have so we can get him back on his feet, so as we can get the children sorted out over in Tanzania? And indeed, they adhered that whisper from Spirit within them. And then I heard that big booming shout from Spirit that said, I'm with you on this. And that is always why God does not hear. There's only those reasons why God doesn't hear our prayers of healing. God needs people to work through. If he has no one to work through, nearly impossible to answer the prayers of other people. It's as simple as that. God needs you as much as you need God. God needs people to work through. I know. I see people praying constantly in Tanzania and the prayers were not getting answered. They just weren't getting answered until we rocked up and created a bridge for prayers to be answered. Either that, or sadly, it's something that can't be healed, which happens in life. Part of the experience, however we like it or not, part of it. But in the most part, when you can be healed and God is seemingly ignoring you, then what is going on is that you haven't brought forth that intelligence that heals your cuts, that intelligence, the immune system that fights off your viruses and so on and so forth, that intelligence that beats your heart, that intelligence that grows your skin and your fingernails and your hair, the intelligence that sorts out your liver enzymes, your digestion. You haven't been able to bring that forward into the front of your carnal mind, and thus many of us are sick and we hold it open. We hold it open because we are eating the wrong foods. We hold it open because we are not using the right treatments. We hold it open because we're not going in the right direction at the right time. And all of this can happen just simply because we are not quiet enough, and at the same time, much of the time, sadly, we are not intelligent enough sometimes to find our way into the path of healing that we need. Other people are, that's why we have healers and doctors on the planet, etc., of course, and they indeed are guided by their intelligence and divine nudges and whispers, I'm very sure of that. But these people who have chronic illness and stay chronically ill for such a long time, there are ways out of it for most people, and God will find a way to get us out of it, but only if we can hear Spirit. And if you can't hear Spirit, then how on earth can Spirit guide you to your healing? And if you can't hear Spirit, how are you going to make sure that you do hear Spirit? And the best way to do it, the only way to do it, is in humility and silence. And it's your inner senses, your inner work, your inner sensory perceptions are very real, just as your outer five senses are. And your intuition can guide you to where you need to be going and what you need to do. For instance, myself at the moment, I have fasted so much this year, I'm very sensitive to everything. And when I go to eat certain foods, I can get near the food and look at it, and my body can tell me intuitively, that's not okay. And I don't want that. Even things that are very delicious that I want to say, my body's telling me, this is not going to be okay. And I'll move on to something else and my body will tell me, yes, that's exactly what I need today. And this is how the inner workings can lead us towards our healing. But at the same time, also as my example shows, if the mind gets noisy, then quite often the beautiful intelligence that knows how to heal you cannot be heard. And thus we keep pushing around in our lives, as I did for so long, and we go against our intuition. We go against the inner knowing, thinking, of course, as always, thinking we know better. When the reality was all along for me for over a year that I had been given the answer, I knew what it was, I told people what it was, but I didn't follow through with the medical testing, and in my stupid ignorance and perhaps even my tiredness and busyness in Tanzania, I didn't go and get the tests done that I should get done. And lo and behold, I finally went to see a doctor. And I only went to see a doctor because I had a visitation from a being of the angelic realm, shall we say, who very sternly and strictly told me, go to see a doctor. I had already bought all the antibiotics ready to treat things myself, but this was a very stern, go and see a doctor. And the next day we found this doctor. So God will heal you if there's a chance to. But the number one thing you can do to heal yourself is to stop thinking. If you're at the point where you're turning to God, then stop thinking. So as God doesn't need you to tell him that you need healing. God will know that. God sees you as all loving parents do. But if your child is misbehaving and keeps burning themselves on the fire, and you cannot, no matter how many times you shout at them, they don't hear you, so they keep going back and touching the fire and keep burning their finger over and over, what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is take the earplugs out of the child's ears and say, now can you hear me? And they go, yes, what's the problem? Stop touching the fire and then you won't get burned. Okay, I won't do that anymore. And your earplugs are your thoughts. And if you can just shut those thoughts off, then God will be able to tell you what you're burning your finger on, what foods are not working for you, and where you need to go to start healing yourself, or what it is that you're even fighting inside of yourself. And that is my little bit about why God seems to not be answering prayers and requests for healing, when in actual fact, Mother, Father, Creator is always working with this wonderful great spirit that passes through all of humanity and helps us every step of the way. But we must be in a state of spirit and not flesh, or it can't express itself through us. Just as I managed to get in to see one of the best doctors, and the day before I'm going there and I'm concerned about the cost, somebody on a long water fast who was fasting after I said about fasting, they said it encouraged them to give it a go, was able to hear a whisper from spirit, whether they realized that that's what was happening or not. I know that's what was happening, and lo and behold, that whisper leads to me going, oh, okay, I'm definitely going in the right direction, because that's nearly exactly what I need for my bill. So to all of you seeking healing, that's the best thing I can share in my experience, is stop thinking and start allowing the intelligence that will heal a cut on your hand to express itself in your waking conscious life. And that intelligence to I is the arm of your mother and father, which is the arm of God, and it's there to guide you and look after you as best as possible until you go home to see them again. God bless, guys. Bye. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, as it really helps us to grow the channel and with it help more children here in Tanzania. Also, don't forget you can support our work by sharing with children in crisis here, be it sharing for a particular need or even sharing one-on-one support for education, housing, food and medical care. It can be done for as little as the cost of a cup of coffee a week back in the West after all. Just visit www.sharetanzania.co.uk to find out more. Lastly, remember you can also support us via Patreon, www.patreon.com/featherstail, and help keep us here in Tanzania to continue our work. The links for the website and for the Patreon are in the description box of this video. Love and light, guys. See you soon.